2, 1, boom, let's go. Da, 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 da.
It's life outside the box.
Oh no!
Yay.
It's taken 10 episodes. 10 episodes in, and our guest today, for those of you who are watching on, or listening on Spotify or Apple and not watching on YouTube, you will have heard a little snippet of our guest's beautiful singing voice then. Samuel, do you want to introduce him for us?
This week we have Dan. We've been wanting to get Dan on the show for a while now, so Dan has a lot of experience in CrossFit. So I really think we can have a great chat here and explore his mind a little bit and his mindset and the stories that he's got to go with it. Should be a really exciting episode.
Yeah, hope so. I'm following on some
No
good
pressure.
people here.
Yes, you had some. So what I want to talk about first is something we failed to talk about with Jacques, but he brought it up afterwards. Is English your first language?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I get this a lot because everyone from South Africa is like, knowing a little bit about South Africa knows about Afrikaans, and Jacques is Afrikaans.
Yeah.
So we actually, I think South Africa has something like 9 official languages.
Okay.
I might be butchering that, it might be 11. But either way, it's a lot of languages, right?
Either way, it's more than one.
Yeah, so I'm traditionally English with English descent. So my mom's English, my dad's also English.
So this should be no problem for you then.
Yeah. No, I should.
Mike can deliver the big words.
I can throw any big words that you want.
Conjunction.
Right. So, Dan, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction for those of you who don't know who you are?
So my name is Daniel. I'm South African. I've been living in Amsterdam for the last 5 years, and I've been coaching CrossFit now for 12 years, going on 12 years. So doing it for a long time. I also like to consider myself as multifaceted. I do lots of different things. So I'm also a photographer, play around with different media. But mostly I spend my days teaching CrossFit and doing CrossFit.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah.
And a bit of diving as well.
I do a little bit of diving. I do all sorts of shit.
Swimming up and down.
Can I swear?
Yeah,
you
it's
can
too
swim.
late now.
Otherwise, it's going to be a very stressful episode for me because
I mean, you also can swim 50 metres underwater by holding your breath.
I can't do that.
We did it.
I did a new PB yesterday.
Oh, you did the whole
Yeah, I
2
went
months?
down 25 meters.
Oh, down 25.
Down 25.
And back up 25.
And back up, so that's
50.
Free diving.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's my new obsession.
Awesome. So now the viewers have got a little bit more about you. We're going to explore some questions that were sent in from the viewers. The first question was sent in by Sylvia, and it's, what is the biggest event you've ever participated in?
So that would be what is now, it was always, but the Lowlands Throwdown. It is now a sanctional. It wasn't when I did it, but it was still one hell of an event when I did it. It was back in 2019, I think. I went through a period of my life where I really chased the athletic dream. And so that was kind of the highest action competition that I competed in. Yeah, I mean, competing against some of the top European names because it's such a big event. It attracts a lot of. So I was in the heat. Looked to my left was Adrian Manuela, and I was like, oh shit, got to put things down here, you know. But yeah, that's it.
Where's that?
It's in Amsterdam, in Holland. It's in Amsterdam now. Back then it was in somewhere else. So it's become a sanctional or semi-final now. Keeps changing. Yeah.
So how would that compare to just your general like in-box competition? What's the sort of different vibe?
Yeah, I think it's who they've partnered with. It's the way it's put together. So it's put together as close to the games I think as possible. Just the spectacle of it and the size of it. It's in a massive those indoor cycling tracks. So it's like in this massive stadium, velodrome, that's the one. So you have like all of these stands, and it comes right down to the middle with all the lights and the way they set the floor up and all the brands that partner with it that just make it such a spectacle. So I think in terms of the actual competing, it's still you versus 10 guys, 3 to 1 go. That doesn't really change, but it's the spectacle of it that makes it cool.
And as an athlete, would your prep have been particularly different for that, or were you very good at just doing everything the same every time?
No, yeah, so that we did particularly prep for that. It's also the way it works back in Holland is very similar to here in that you need to qualify for events. It's a massive qualification process. And then they also announce the athletes on Instagram, like they put you out saying you qualified with where you come from and a whole little bio on you. So it's such a cool thing. So definitely the training gets ramped up because it's our focus point then of the season. The gym I was working at the time, but also then training at it's really well known back in Amsterdam, so it attracts a lot of sponsors. So we had a little team unit, which started out as a squad, and it was like typically like old school team, like school team vibes, right? So we started out as a squad of, I think there was like 20 people. We did a 3-month trial process where we were just working out and training together every Saturday, and we had a coach who was seeing how we went along, watching the numbers, and then we made 2 squads, 2 games teams, because at that time the game teams were 2 guys, 2 girls. So 2 teams, 2 full teams, an A team and a B team. A team ended up going to the games, and then the B team we just trained together as a squad of 8. So by the time we got to Lowlands Throwdown, at that point we were very focused on that. That was a big deal for us.
So it was a team event, the Lowlands? That
No, yeah. So
individual?
that was individual.
Oh, okay,
yeah, but
nice.
we trained as a squad.
Mm.
Yeah, with the ultimate goal of preparing the A team to go to the games.
And what was your highlight from that event? Give me a highlight. One thing that sticks in your memory.
Yeah, it was a snatch event. It's just one of those classic, again, the spectacle, and you're in this environment and you're lifting one at a time, and you're just going for a max snatch. And then you have all of your people standing right in front of you. You have time to kind of interact with them in between. You hear what they're saying. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm on the floor, I hardly hear anything. But in those events, because you have time in between lifts and stuff, you do hear. So it kind of really draws you in. And that snatch event just went well for me as well. And that was quite a cool memory.
Yeah, it's nice when it all clicks, and when you've got your friends and family or whatever in front of you watching.
Yeah.
And then it's all coming together, and the feelings you get in that moment
Yeah.
are just insane.
And it's spectacular. I mean, they were set. We were facing the crowd, but like right in front. So kind of just 5 meters ahead of me was just this crowd of my people, which is great. But also at the same time, I didn't know what to do with my eyes, because you don't want to like make eye contact with anyone. You just like, random blank stares. I'm also one of those people I like, don't walk across me when I'm about to lift, you know?
Yeah, I feel like in CrossFit competition as well, like we asked the same question to Jock, and his highlight from weekend as well was also a lifting event.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to when I've been competing as well, it's like usually the lifting stands out because it's fun and less painful.
Yeah.
It's like you never think back to
definitely.
like a horrible workout and you're like, that was the highlight for me.
But I also think it's
dying.
because it's slowed down, right? Because 3, 2, 1, go, and you're in a workout where you're working until you're finished, and you don't have time to think outside. But when it's a lifting event, you really get drawn into, cool, this is what I'm doing now, you know, because it's slower. You have time in between. You have some time to think. Whereas 3, 2, 1, go in another workout, you don't have time to think. You're just performing.
Yeah, and you can actually absorb that atmosphere much more rather than focusing on like what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's just
And then when you get that moment, because you've had that time to absorb, when you have that moment, it's just so much bigger, I think.
For those of you listening at home who will remember back to Callum's episode, what we spoke about on Callum's episode a little bit was about at Sonny's lifting seminar, Callum capturing somebody doing a lift, hitting a PB and really capturing it. It was Callum's highlight of the seminar, and that was you, Dan, in that video. So for those of you back home who remember Callum talking about capturing this one moment in the seminar, that was Dan's clean and jerk lift.
That was also such a special moment, and I posted that video. He sent it to me, and I posted it. And what I wrote there, because the lift was cool, the moment was cool, the video is amazing, but also just cool. But what was the biggest part for me is I had this moment, and we can go into this a little bit later, but I'm very, very intense in my mind, right? And that's ultimately why I don't really compete anymore. Because I make everything too big and I get too stressed out. So what was beautiful about that moment is I walked up to the bar, and I had a moment before I walked up to the bar where I thought, I'm very fortunate to be doing what I'm about to do. You know, like if I miss this lift, that's cool, but I'm in this brand new environment. I have 40 pairs of eyes on me that I get to interact with on a daily basis. They're going to see me express myself now. I have Sunny to my left. I have you guys. Like, this is a moment. This is cool. And even if it goes wrong, it's still a cool moment. Yeah, and then that made the fact that then I hit that lift just so much more special, because I got that time to absorb and be like, oh, this is cool.
I want to just take that moment there when we're thinking about you experiencing a moment in front of 40 people you get to interact with every day, and let's take that into the next question.
Cool.
So the next question is from Matt, and it's at what point did you realise your future in the sport was as a coach and not as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned right in the beginning, I've been doing this for a long time, like 12 years now. So, you know, I think with any career or anything that you do for 12 years, it's not going to be linear. So I've gone through it all, right? I've had moments where as you've spoken about, chased the athletic dream, and I've had moments where I've hated moving completely, and I stopped moving for a long time. I've had moments where I've loved coaching, and I've had moments where I've hated coaching. I think the moment for me was when, I don't know, it's super personal, but I phoned my dad up after a bad session. I'd missed some lifts, gymnastics is not my thing, so I think I had to hit a set of bar muscle ups, and I missed my number or something like that, and I phoned my dad, and I lost my shit. I just started crying. I was like, Dad, I'm like bawling. I'm on a bicycle in Amsterdam. I was like raining out. I'm like, I hate this. I'm so bad at this. I'm trash. I'm a piece of shit. Blah blah blah. And that was kind of the turning point for me, because at some point I went home, and one of the girls who was in that A team, Ninka, she's a great friend of mine. She's also a multiple games athlete. She's been a couple times. They're going to sanctionals now, semi-finals, whatever it's called. And she sat me down, and she's like, if you don't enjoy the process and you don't enjoy what you're doing, like, if you keep looking at where you need to be or not. And I mean, it's that age-old conversation about process versus the end goal, right? But that was the point where I started realizing, why? Like, what are you doing? What's the point? Like, if you're going to be doing this thing, but all it's going to be doing is making you negative. My coaching wasn't good at the time, because I was coaching, say, 4 or 5 hours a day, training for 3 hours a day, and then having to be a boyfriend, everything else, and everything, because all my energy went into being an athlete. Like Sunny spoke about having to be selfish, and that to be an athlete, and it's probably, it's at a whole different level, but it was that same thing. Like, the biggest thing for me was being an athlete. So everything else took another hammering, took a hammering. So it was at that point that it kind of started. So then I got selected as the reserve to the games team. So if anything happened to one of the guys, I would have gone along, and because if there was a team of 4, you had to submit 6 names. And that put so much pressure on me, and because I had to train along them and make sure that I was prepared to compete, you know, and I hated it. I hated every step, and I decided that the second we were done in Madison, I was done. And I stopped for a year and a half. But what that also did is I struggled to distinguish coaching versus being an athlete. For me, it was CrossFit. And so I wanted nothing to do with coaching as well. So I went through a very dark period in coaching, and it was still my job. It's still how I paid the bills. So I would show up to classes and just not represent what I needed to on the floor, and for the people that I needed to on the floor. And I've actually only recently, like actually since I've been in Bali, found a place again where I'm getting a lot of energy from it, and I'm loving more how I get to interact with people and the things I get to do for people, rather than what I'm able to do.
Yeah, it's interesting about the team thing, which is kind of something I never really thought too much about before, the pressure of actually being on a team, and not saying that you are the weakest link, but feeling like you might be the weakest link in a team. And then not only you've got that pressure on yourself to do well, but the thought of, like, especially if you're trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games, or you're at the CrossFit Games, and if you feel like you might be the reason behind everybody else not doing so well, it's a huge added pressure.
And it's not even like a thought that maybe I'm the weakest link. It was very clearly that. Right? We had these 2 teams, and the top 4 guys were levels above us. You know, like, I'm a very competent CrossFitter, but there's levels to this. You know, like, so if I'd been put on that team, I would have been a weak link. But I mean, it was just the whole environment, right? There was all of the sponsors, because it was that kind of environment as well, because there was lots of money involved. So there was Fit Aid, there was Reebok, there was Lyco, there was all of these sponsors, and just having the names attached created that stress, even though they were putting no pressure. Not like they were saying you need to do this and you need to do that, but just having those names attached, it's like, oh well, shit, you know.
Yeah, I have to
perform now.
Yeah, I've got everybody watching. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Interesting side of competing that I haven't really thought about. I'm sure people listening could probably relate to as well. Like, when you're going on a personal competition and it's individual, you've only got yourself to blame. The thing that's always drawn me towards doing team is that it's almost more fun doing it with your friends. But I've never really thought about that added pressure of being like, oh, I'm letting the team down.
But I think it depends a lot on the context, right? Because, you know, I was never actually chasing a games dream. You know, because, like I said, there was levels, and I know that's not my level, so that's not something I was actively chasing. But because of the way things worked in the squad and where I fit into that ladder, I was put in that position that if someone hurt themselves, I would be there. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, these people have been chasing the games dream for a long time, you know, and now all of a sudden their experience is a little bit dependent on me, if we have to get to that point. and then that becomes very. But you know, if we're just doing a competition for the sake of competition and you're in your lane, and I think that's a lot more enjoyable.
I think it's probably putting even added pressure on you. The fact that you kind of half knew you weren't on the level of those 4 of them. They knew you weren't by not selecting you, and then all of a sudden you've been thrusted just into the limelight. Oh well, we kind of know you're not really on a level, but you might need to be.
Yeah, and I mean these were open conversations, right? This wasn't an underhanded thing.
Which is how it has to be.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it makes it 50 times worse if it's not an open conversation.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be honest and you'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And it very nearly happened there.
Yeah.
Because so I ended up going with as part of the media team.
Let's talk about that later on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I think I'm super excited. When we met up and first spoke about being on this podcast, that's the story I want to hear.
Yeah, cool.
More
It's
than
a good
anything, like
Stay
I'm super.
tuned for that, guy.
I am super excited
Now
about
a
that
word
story.
from our sponsors.
Yeah.
So
So
one more thing on that. If you hadn't have been part of that moment, and do you think you may have carried on competing if you hadn't have been put into that position? You think that was the end all for you? Just that whole scenario?
I think so. I'm a big believer in things play out and happen in life as they need to, right? To learn the lessons that you need to learn. So I've been competing in sport my whole life. I was a competitive rower for 17 years. And that overlapped with me starting CrossFit. And it's ultimately why I started CrossFit, is because I got bored of rowing. So I've been competing since I was small. But where I think what I need to be doing right now is what's really important for me is the people I'm affecting on the floor every day. And because CrossFit is what it is, right? Because it's so competitive, it's so high skill, and it's so accessible to absolutely everybody, you need people who are going to keep people in their lane, right? Slow them down. And because I've experienced the burnout, the tears, the hurting my body, the waking up every morning, not being able to move joints, and I'm in the perfect position because of those lessons that I've learned and because of how shit it got for me at a time, that I'm still learning, but getting to a point where I want to help people go through CrossFit in a very healthy, very functional way. Because CrossFit back in the day, that's why it started, right? It wasn't for what you put down on the board and how much you put above your head. It was about the health point of view, right? It's about taking people and moving their joints through full range. That's why CrossFit came about. It's become its own thing and it's become its beast, but I've walked the hard road so that now I can advise people on how to do it in a safe, healthy way, and that's what I want to do now.
it sounds like it was actually a great point, that Sam. When you're saying that, I'm thinking in my head, you were it's like you were on a fence. And it could have gone either way. That experience, that opportunity you got could have gone either way. It could have lit the fire underneath you to say, do you know what? I really want this. And you could have gone that way. Or what you did do is you decide, you know what? I don't really want this. And you stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was purely because of what it was doing to me. You know, I was an unhappy person. I wasn't... and I mean, you love to speak about intrinsic and extrinsic. And, you know, it wasn't in the right place. It was very much about... I'm wearing this brand because they sponsor me and I'm this and I'm that and I'm part of this team and now I'm chasing this thing and it wasn't for the right reason. So when things got hard, it became very hard.
It's funny, I'm going to just go off topic a little bit here because I read a little quote from Tiger Woods this morning, and because he's talking about he's going to probably retire very soon. Tiger Woods...
That'll be a thing.
Well, he said that as a kid he was never the most talented, he was never the best athlete, he was never the fastest, he was never the strongest, but he wanted it more than everybody else. And that just comes from inside, and that's what the people who are the best in the world have. They have this desire inside them that no matter what, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that just for you wasn't for CrossFit.
I didn't have that.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, that's the last romantic story. I'd love to sit here from you guys and be like, yeah, and then I decided that I wanted this and I went and did what Matt did and now I'm this success. But actually, no.
But the thing that you have got from that is something that athletes don't get, and you've taken all the experiences that you've had and you've allowed it to build you into the coach that you are today. So if you hadn't have gone through that experience, like you said, you wouldn't be able to support other people that are potentially going to go down that road, and that is invaluable, really. So to build you as a coach right now, or a mentor, or whatever road you want to go down, it's all those little things that are really going to play out and make you the best you can be at your job rather than a sport. So it kind of all plays in.
Yeah, and at some point you need to be real. Like, yeah, CrossFit's not this big money thing, and maybe if I'd done that and I could have pushed, I maybe would have got to a place, but I never would have been a place where being an athlete was paying the bills and stuff. So what does pay the bills? What is my job? What do I wake up every morning, put a shirt on and go do? Coach. You know, and how can I be the best at that? And for now, that is the most rewarding thing.
Yep.
Because it happens all the time. You get something on Instagram and someone posts a thing about what they did, and then they just put a little thing at the bottom being like, massive thanks to Dan or to Sam. And it's the most rewarding thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So this is actually going to lead on really, really well to our next question, which was from Steve. And that is, what is the major differences in the new age CrossFit compared to what it was like 12 years ago? So we're in a super good position for us guys here, because I'm super new to CrossFit. Sam, you've been 7 years, is it, in the sport?
Probably 9.
Probably 9. Oh God.
I cut him short.
Time goes quick.
Don't know what you've been doing for the last couple then. But so what's the differences in 12 years of the sport? Because like you said before, it did start a certain way and now it's turned into this big hype kind of beast thing. But what are the major differences?
Whew. How much time do we have in the studio? I'll keep it simple with the thing that I think is most relevant to me at the moment, and that is, I think it's become too complicated. And I feel this about the fitness industry, and I feel this because of Instagram, and there's just so much, and I get overwhelmed by it. And I've been in this for 12 years, and I get overwhelmed by, he's got a point, maybe I should be chasing that. Oh wait, but he's got a counterpoint that also makes complete sense. But maybe and it's so overwhelming, and that's just the fitness industry. But I think CrossFit's following that trend a little bit, where it is a very simple thing, and yes, we have some technical movements, but it is a very simple concept that doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And I think it's now everybody's chasing that athletic dream blindly, without knowing, without competing, now everybody's got their own program, and it's great because it helps us make a better living. But ultimately, people need to be in class, learning the basics, and it needs to be simple. It's about the community. It's about having something that you want to work towards. Like, he can do these pull-uppy things, and what do I need to do? I go ask my coach. Okay, you need to get a little bit stronger first, and then we need to teach you through the skill, and then I set my mind to that and I achieve that. Not I now need to be on this cycle of this in order to gain that. It needs to be dumbed down and simplified, because ultimately, what does 90% of the population need? And I really believe this. They just need to eat whole foods, move for 60 minutes a day. It really needs to be simplified. And I think CrossFit's heading down a bit of a dark road in that sense, and I'm starting to notice it more and more gyms, because now, and I know why it is, and I'm also running down that road. But now all coaches are dishing out programming, which is taking people away from the core. And the core of CrossFit is beautiful, and it will offer you a lot. But the egotistical side of CrossFit is this much bigger now.
Well, there's a few simple things to look at there. It's something that we promote all the time. It's that the fundamentals are the fundamentals for a reason. You don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. The fundamentals are what you need to get good at. But also, something that we spoke about with Sean, when we were speaking to Sean and we were saying this, is that the fundamentals aren't particularly sexy.
No.
So people don't want to post the fundamentals on social media because they're not particularly sexy, even though they're what's most important. And it's hard to sell the fundamentals to people because it's not sexy.
No.
People want to buy something that they believe is like the magic pill, the magic kind of guide to get them somewhere.
That's society, right? That's I'll take that out of the context of fitness, but that's society. And I think that's how the whole world runs. But it can be so simple.
I think as well, just going off what you said, is people get into CrossFit because they go to the gym and they're bored or whatever, they're not enjoying it. It's a lot of people get into CrossFit, they've been doing bodybuilding or something prior to it before they get into it, and then they go to CrossFit class, it's 60 minutes, they go in, it's a class with multiple people, so you get that like competitive, you get that fun side where you're not just sat with your headphones in the corner, you're socializing, and they do that for 6 months, like, I absolutely love CrossFit, and then they suddenly get that competitive bug, and they're like, oh well, I can't beat this guy over here, so I need to go down that personalized programming road. And you see them after 6-12 months of CrossFit, they've gone from, say, use an example, being a bodybuilder, sat in the gym on their own with their headphones, to doing 6 months having the time of their life, jumping on a program, and now suddenly they're in an open gym for 2 hours on their own, back with their headphones in, not socializing, and then they're motivated for a month or two to get it done, and then suddenly they're like, oh, why am I doing this? And it's really important. Like, I have a lot of personal clients, but the first question I ask them is, why do you want to do this?
Awesome.
And if they can't tell me why, it's like, if you just want to come to the gym and be healthy, you stick with the classes because 2 months down the line, you're not going to have the motivation to want to do this, and you're not having a good enough reason to be doing this. So
yeah, and what that takes away is the constant guidance, because what I see with a lot of people is they jump into the program and they make progress. Sure, I mean you can't not, right? You take a relative beginner, you stick them with more volume, and the curve's going to be big. It'll work that way. But what I see is a deterioration in the mind constantly, where people, they start treating themselves like an athlete, and it's the comparison. Right, it's the Instagram comparison, it's the whiteboard comparison, it's just a constant comparison. And people are sat there for 2 hours with their headphones on, and then they're throwing their shit because they missed something, they're running out of the gym, and they're pissed off.
But Instagram is extrinsic. Okay, so the second, we speak about this all the time, and I think what you were touching on there when you ask your clients, why do you do this? Because you want them to come back to you with an intrinsic motivation factor. They want to do it for something within, and when somebody wants to do it for something within, they're going to be successful. So for you, for a client, if a client says, because inside me, I want to do this for whatever my own reason, you know they're going to be successful. But if it's because they're comparing themselves with people on Instagram or they're comparing thingy, that is just a hollow motivation factor. It's going to run out.
And it's my number one biggest criticism on CrossFit is, if I had to go back to 2007 or whenever it was right in the beginning, and sit next to Greg while he was formulating this thing, I would have been like, this is great, but let's take the whiteboard element out of things. Let's stop putting people's scores down.
Yeah,
I just prior, like the last year, I spent opening a gym in Amsterdam from the ground up, and I banned scores. We didn't do scores. And what I saw there, and it ended up coming in, because then you had a whole bunch of new experienced CrossFitters coming in, and then because they have that, they wanted it, and it started becoming a conversation. But what I got in the beginning was a whole bunch of people who didn't care about what they did. They were all on their own journey, and I really, really saw that. It didn't last long, but I think that is the competition element of CrossFit, and it always would have gotten there, right? But I think, I don't know, I think we could have stayed. I think the conversation of CrossFit around health could have lasted a lot longer, or been a bit bigger, had we taken the ego element out of things.
Yeah, because straight away you're putting in that competitive vibe, and fair enough, like 5-10% of people in the class, they want that competitiveness. But if I want that, like, I work out next to you, and as soon as we finish workout, I'm like, oh Dan, how many rounds you get? And you share that kind of score within that moment, and going to the whiteboard and writing it down so you could like show off to the rest of the community is kind of not great. And to use an example, like, we coached a class with 62 people this morning, and we maybe got like not even 10% of people brought their score up. So that shows us that, like, we really have to go around and like, please bring us your scores, bring us your scores. People don't want to bring their scores up. It's not the part of the gym that I feel that part of their session that they really enjoy. There's the one or two obviously that are competitive, but for the general population, the majority is no one's really that interested.
For me, let's just expand on that competitive side there, because I'm super competitive, okay? But when I go to the gym, I'll be super competitive in competition format. When I go to the gym, I'm going to train, and training is very different to working out. I'm going to train to get better, and not necessarily during that session. If you're trying to get better at something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're putting the best score, the best time in you physically could, because you're doing things a certain way to get better. So I think that what you're kind of talking about there is that what's your reason for going to the class?
Yeah, exactly. But also, where's your thought process? So if we train together and Sam's like, okay, we're doing 5x5 heavy push press today, and I know my shoulders aren't there, whether or not we all end up throwing up the same weight, and I'm not there, I'll say, listen, you do that, but I'm going to bring it down, but because I know, right, and because I think, and because there's forethought, and I know what it's going to feel like for the rest of the week. I know it's where my limitations are, because it's something I thought about, and yes, I'm experienced and all of that, but it's more about the fact that I think about it. Yeah, and it'll be the same for you guys, but what I think is people, there's no thought. So I'm standing at a rig, there's 3 people, one of them weighs 100 kilos, and we need to do 2 front squats and a jerk. He weighs 100 kilos. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I only weigh 70 kilos and have been doing this for 3 weeks. But he's got that much on his bar. I guess I should be able to, and I'm just going to try. There's no yeah, actually no, that looks a bit silly. You know, like maybe just let me slow down a little bit, or let me practice a little bit. And when they come through, it's amazing. I love working with those people. But they're anomalies where they come through. When we had a guy come to weightlifting the other day, he was a unit. I think one of the biggest people I've seen come through the gym, other than Sean, in a little while. And he came to weightlifting, but like massive man, right? He moved really well, but it was his first weightlifting class, and I had to convince him. I had to like actually argue with him to put 5 kilos on the bar. And he was like, no, I want to learn. And I was like, I believe that. And there was reasoning that I wanted him to add a little bit of weight. And but Sam and I both came up afterwards, and we were like, you see this guy, and I really want to teach him, and I hope he comes back. And we were so stoked by it because it's such an anomaly. Because people don't actually want to learn. They just want to not think for an hour, which I also get, but then...
Yeah.
So we're going to end the question section from the viewers with a bonus question. Samuel, do we have a bonus question this week?
You have one, don't you?
That means no, guys. That means no. No, it's all good.
No, I do have one actually. When you were competing in rowing, what kind of like, why did you stop rowing and start CrossFit? What was the transition there?
So I started rowing when I was 12. Rowed all through school. And the nature of rowing is that it's very intense. So we would train like Olympians as 16-year-olds, because it's to be good at rowing is a very difficult thing. And you're trying to sync up 8 people to be doing the exact precise thing at the same time. And it's also very, very taxing sports. You have to train really hard to be good at it. So we trained very intensely. So I did that throughout school. I went to university to carry on doing that, and again chased the national dream and got into the national setup there, and trained with an Olympic squad right at the beginning of the cycle. But same thing, it's like I love being athletic and I love being competitive, but as soon as I really get into those environments, it's not for me. So I did the exact same thing with CrossFit that happened with rowing. And at about 23, 24, no, 19, 20, sorry. I just got bored because it's the exact same movement.
Yeah.
Staring at the back of someone's head. Yeah. So you've been doing that for, at that time, 8-9 years of the exact same thing with a lot of intensity. It's just like, I'm ready for something else.
Yeah.
So I remember I was at university at the time, and I pulled up a list of all the sports my university offered because I just wanted something new. And I considered underwater hockey even. Just wanted something like completely different. And then it was actually my mom, because she's a big foodie. She found the paleo diet, and through the paleo diet she heard of CrossFit, and she was like, "This is the thing for you." That was a Saturday night, and Monday morning I was in class. So that was quite cool.
So we're going to move on to our sections now that we talk about with all of our guests. So section 1 is what. In fact, before we do this, I'm pretty confident here that Dan's going to get this, because we have a few guests, don't we, who don't quite get the questions. So I think
we'll find out, won't we?
I think Dan's going to get these questions now.
Okay.
So
pressure.
That's it. We're just trying to put you in the competition environment.
Pause and let me know what you want me to say. Cause
No. So what is the most important thing you do outside the box or gym that makes you better inside the box or gym?
It's not a sexy answer, unfortunately.
Well, we're fundamentals. We're all about the fundamentals.
The gym for me is work, right? Whether I'm there to train or whether it's my office. So even if I just pop in for an hour and a half to do my own thing, training, there's still people that are coming and talking to me, and I still have to represent as an employee of the gym, right? As a coach, so I am on whenever I'm there. So what I do to make sure, how did you phrase the question again? What I do outside of the gym to make it better inside the gym?
To make you better inside the gym.
I find silence. Okay. So I just sit in silence, or I read, or I just need to completely disconnect and unwind. Because like if you have 62 people on the floor, there's 3 of you that need to handle that situation. By the end of it, you are pretty screwed mentally. So I find silence and solitude.
Yeah, I really like that answer. Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, it's surprising. Like when the classes are pumping and there's so much going on at the time, like you're basically like there's adrenaline like high, and sometimes you like roll with it and you feel fantastic, and other times you just have to take like today you take a second just to stop, and you're almost like overwhelmed by the situation.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in your head. You're thinking logistics, you're thinking about fixing that person, you're thinking about am I going to run over, blah blah blah, and then you finish and suddenly it's just like silence, and you're like calmed, and you just come down a little bit and you enjoy that moment. So yeah, I think that's a really good answer.
Yeah, I love it. Number 2. Now, that could have been the answer to number 2 as well, but we'll go for a different one, hopefully. Number 2, what is your favourite thing to do outside of the gym?
Oh, that's definitely going to be quiet. I mean, definitely going to be different because being quiet isn't my favourite thing.
Sitting in a dark room.
Yeah. So, I mean, that changes, right?
It can't, after your performance this last weekend, it can't be partying and going out.
No, I mean, I just don't do that enough. You know, like that's a muscle you need to train as well. I got severely beaten by Sam the other night. No, so for me, currently, it's actually being in other gyms. I quite enjoy. So just from the last week, I started doing jiu-jitsu on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and I absolutely love it. Just being a student and learning, because that's another thing I've realized is I haven't learned something for a long time. Like it's been a long time since I've needed to learn something for CrossFit. We can make ourselves better, and we can always incrementally chase something, but to learn is a different thing. And to be a student again, and to just enjoy the gym culture without being part of it, and to just enjoy the experience of it, because I haven't been part of the experience of CrossFit. I've been responsible for the experience, and that's a very different thing. So I'm currently learning 2 new sports, and that is my favorite thing to do currently.
When we had Elite, when we used to own the big gym back home, we had a deal with another gym where our members of staff could use their gym for free, and their members of staff could use our gym for free, just because of what you spoke about before. When you walk into Wonderlust right now, no matter what, you are always representing Wonderlust.
Yeah.
Even if you're just in there to train by yourself. So we used to have a relationship where our staff could go and train there, because then it's just their free time. They're nothing to do with that place. For the same kind of reason.
And I think that should be more common practice, right? But it's a big careful, yeah. But you know, for all gyms, it's a threatening thing.
Yeah.
Right, and it's unfortunate.
Well, because the insecurities in people there, that if they don't know about the arrangement, they'll be thinking, well, why on earth, Mike, who owns that gym over there, why is he using this gym?
Yeah.
Because it's like, does he think that this gym's better than his own gym or something?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's purely, you've got to take your ego out. It's purely for people's mental health, to let them have somewhere else they can train.
And some days I just want to lift, listen to music, and just train. And you know, like I love my job and I love what I get to do, but I don't always want to hear about how you felt at round 3 of the workout last Thursday. Yeah. You know, like
we've all had it where we've even had our headphones on with no music in.
Yeah.
In the gym, just because you think if I've got my headphones in, everyone will leave me alone.
And then you get like someone who just floats in your eye vision.
Or you've got the big you've got the big ones in, and they just like lift this. Don't touch me.
Yeah. And it's just part of it, though. But I mean, so to answer the question, currently it's learning and being trying different sports and just doing something that's not CrossFit.
I was sure you were going to say diving.
Well, I did, learning new sports, specifically diving.
Samuel, you good?
Yeah, very good.
Good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about your chosen topic. So this is what we spoke about at the beginning of the episode, where I was super, super excited to hear this story, because this is something that for me really is interesting, because obviously as athletes we've all done really well and got to like a certain level, and things have not worked out, or else we wouldn't all be sat here now. But I'm super interested to hear about how yours didn't work out. So what we're going to title this little episode here is...
I mean, not working out's a harsh way of saying it.
Yeah, come on. Why did you lose?
Why were you bad?
So, I don't even want to say the title. The title sounds so bad now.
I tried to say it, and I'm just going to fix it.
Okay. Reaching the sporting pinnacle, but falling just quite short.
I mean, that's not what
I didn't write. At least you reached the pinnacle, more than Mike did.
Well, I mean, and even that is quite debatable. I get frustrated with my girlfriend and family because they like to bring this up, but I don't actually. So, like I was saying to you, this might be the first time I properly told the story, because I don't like talking about it, because it's like I didn't. And like when I went, so let's.
Just start from the beginning.
Yeah, okay. So as I spoke about earlier, I was part of that team and that structure, and then when you register a team for the games, so they qualified for the games, and they were going to go, and it was 2000. Well, so they went multiple years, but the specific year was 2019, the year of the national champ, where there was just everyone their dog went to the games, right? But on the team section, it was a little bit different to that. So they qualified, and when you submit a team, you need to submit 2 reserves. So it was a 4-person team, 2 guys, 2 girls, and then a male reserve and a female reserve, and I was then the male reserve.
Does that mean that you were the better male in Team B?
No, it and so my
The only other guy at the table.
what are the likelihood he's ever going to listen to this?
Find anyone
No,
else.
and I mean, again, this was an open conversation, right? So,
Yeah.
Rubes, if you're listening, love. But it was that he was struggling with a lot of injuries. So actually, no, he was a better athlete than I was.
He'll love that answer.
Yeah, no, but he struggles with niggles. I don't know where he's at now, but at the time he struggled with niggles. So the more reliable option was me. Which made the whole thing we were talking about earlier with the weak link thing even better.
It's all coming out.
Okay, so they've registered a team of 8.
6.
A team of 6.
Yeah.
1 reserve male, 1 reserve female.
Yeah. At the same time, so I also mentioned in the beginning that I also love media and photography and all of that kind of stuff. So my best mate and I had started a company together because he also photographs, called We Are Brew. And we used to just shoot content for people in the gym. And we got some cool gigs, and we did some brand work as well. And we started building this company. It was going really well. But because we also had in with all the sponsors, when they needed a photographer, they knew us well. And so the platform was really nice there. The team qualified in Cape Town. They went to the fittest in Cape Town to qualify. And I remember standing on the floor coaching, and everyone knows they're in the last event, and it was one of those, they need to come in this place in order to qualify, and it was this big thing. The entire gym was on its, everyone was on edge because they knew they were competing at that time, and for an entire hour after that, no one knew what had happened. There was nothing coming out from Fittest Cape Town. There was just the media, and the communication was so bad. And so me and my mate were like, well, now we need to approach the gym and say, well, they're going to go to the games, and you need people on the inside to be able to communicate with the gym and put constant content out, and so we convinced them to do that. And so I didn't actually get sent as the reserve, because the female reserve didn't come along, because once the team was fit to compete, they went to the games, right? And also it's an expensive thing. So I got sent to do the media for the team, and so we filmed vlogs, and we just put out content for the entire 2 weeks that we were there. And so that's ultimately why I was there. But the fun part is that one of the guys really tweaked his back the week before. So we were all training. We were training at this really cool box, and the entire time they were training, he was had Compex on his back, and he was lying down. And I remember 3 days before competition, he just broke down in tears, and he couldn't stand up. And I'm sitting in the corner shit.
Oh no!
I'm not ready for this. And my best
So this
mate,
was the moment.
I was terrified, man. And then my best mate kept coming up to me. He's like, "You're gonna compete? I'm so excited." And I was like, "Shut up." And then ultimately, I mean, we had great physios with us, and one of the sponsors was Compex, so he was just covered in these things the whole time. And he ultimately pulled through and was completely fine. But there was that day, and there was that moment where I was like, I didn't sleep. I was terrified.
Well,
man.
that fight or flight we spoke about before, when you were on the fence, if you really wanted that you in your head, you'd be thinking, yes, this is my chance.
Let me tell you, of course, there's a small part of me that's that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
The way the programming played out, because at that time we didn't know the programming they released, the way the programming played out, I would have been fine. Nothing was completely out of my, and also the team is so competitive. I wouldn't have stood out on TV as look at that loser. I would have been
who's brought the little brother along with him?
I think, they definitely would have got kicked out a little bit sooner than they did, because you get cut, but, I wouldn't have, it would have been cool. I would have been a mess. I would have been a complete wreck, but no, ultimately I got sent to the games for free to do what I love. And I got to take photos. I got to be really, really in. At the games, they have a massive warehouse that is a training center. It's where they warm up. It's where they train the weeks before. And because his back was tweaked, I had to go in and fill in for workouts, because they need to train as a complete team, and also I need to train in case his back doesn't. And I got to train in that environment, and you're on the worm and like the Australian team with Rob, what's his name, Rob Forte,
yeah.
Rob Forte, and I mean, it's just all of them were there, and like Rich is lifting over there, and you know, like I sat down after a workout, and there's a GHD next to me, and all of a sudden BKG and Annie are doing a team workout, and they just run up next to me, and Annie's abs are like here, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is wild. So you know, just like really cool experiences like that. So I wouldn't say got to the pinnacle and didn't make it. I would say
you got very close.
Got nudged towards the pinnacle and then did something else.
Yeah. And then when the pinnacle door started to open, you were like, no, close.
Panic. Yeah. I like also like family and seeing my friends and having a drink every now and then. Like it's just a little bit too serious for me.
Yeah.
So it was a cool experience. Went to the games for free. It was fun.
Awesome. I love that story. That's made me happy to. I'm glad that you shared that with us. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers.
What we want to do now, though, is talk about if you were starting your journey now, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
As a coach or as an athlete?
Just you. So say we're looking back 12 years ago.
You've just finished rowing your last session.
And it's like, right, CrossFit, I'm going to, what was it, say you found it on a Saturday night, you went on a Sunday morning?
Yeah, right that day.
If you bumped into that guy right now.
Right, as he's walking through the gym door, you can just grab yourself and pull you to the side and give you a bit of advice. What would it be?
Don't go to the games.
Yeah, it's like, don't do this. No, I mean, look, I don't think I would change much. Or give much advice outside of what it's been, because as I mentioned before, like I really believe that everything plays out the way it needs to play out. So the mistakes that I've made have put me in a place of knowledge now, you know. Probably it would be something as silly and simple as don't take it so seriously, don't take yourself so seriously, and just enjoy it. Because I do have that tendency of getting too serious about things that don't need to be serious. And I've wasted a lot of time in my life worrying about things that don't need to be worried about. And I mean, it's still an ongoing journey and something that still happens. So if I could look back over this journey, that would be the thing. But I wouldn't want to change anything of that guy's process, because it's played out perfectly. Like, I mean, I think you'll know this beautifully, but it's the most perfect job to travel with. Yeah. You know, like I got born in South Africa, so I moved to Amsterdam. I wanted a new opportunity, so I came to Bali, and the product and the coach, it's the same thing, no matter what box you are in the world.
What I love most is that every single guest who's successful that we've had on has always said they wouldn't change anything.
Yeah,
it's just about learning from your mistakes, learning from your experiences, and not letting them happen again.
Yeah,
in a more positive way. But every single one,
probably nudge myself harder into those mistakes. You know, I mean, we grow from them. They suck though.
More of like a coaching point. Obviously, you've been doing coaching CrossFit. How long have you been coaching CrossFit? 12 years or
12 years.
12 years, yeah. So,
well, yeah, roughly.
So to become a CrossFit coach, if you guys listening aren't sure, you literally all you have to do is a 2-day course for $1,000, and you can coach CrossFit. So, was there any like sort of extra educational personal development that you did that really you felt helped propel you with your work?
Yeah. I consider myself to be one of the most fortunate people in how this came about, right? So I went and I trained at this one gym on the Monday, and we didn't really like it, so we went to a different gym on the Tuesday. These are my first 2 days of CrossFit, and we found the Scouts Hall in the middle of nowhere in where I was living, yeah? And the guy that runs that gym has become one of my absolute closest friends and mentors, and he's on seminar staff. So he's as high as you can be as a CrossFit coach, right? He's one of the flows as well. So he's as high as you can get within that world. But that makes him very purely CrossFit, right? There's no frills. He is what CrossFit started, and that's what he preaches on a daily basis, and he teaches people how to be good. So the 2-day course was how I was allowed to start my 6-month internship, which was sitting next to him every single class while he explained exactly why and how. And then he would write up tests for me. Like I would sit on a Friday and there would be like a piece of paper with questions he'd handwritten that I would have to answer and get marked. And he was very critical and very hard on me. And because of that, I'm still very critical and very hard on myself as a coach. You know, like I had a moment last week where I was coaching and I forgot a very simple thing. I forgot to tell people to put their plates away after a workout, after a warm up. And I just created, and the class ran very smoothly. It was all good, but that one small mistake bugged me for the rest of the day, and it was just one thing I didn't say. So that I learned very fundamentally and over a long period of time. And after 6 months, I was allowed to take a warm up, and then I was criticized on how that warm up went, and then I was allowed to take just a skill session. And so because of that, coaching wasn't just a thing I did in order to have a job, it became my craft. And I think I've, over a long period of time, spent a lot of energy and time making sure that my craft is good.
I absolutely love that. I think that's something from the CrossFit, I've done the CrossFit level 1 obviously, and from that 2 days, if you've not got some experience in coaching, like luckily, like we've all been coaching for as long as we can all remember, but if you've not got some experience in coaching, you do that 2-day course, you are literally being thrown in the lion's den.
Yeah.
There is nothing. So for me personally, that 2-day course should be, now you can be like shadow someone. Now you can be, you know how when you're coaching 2s, you can be a head coach and there can be somebody who assists. That's what that to me, that's what that should be.
Yeah, and it doesn't equip you well enough, right? And it gives you basics, but what we know is that, and what I really believe is that coaching is an art. Yeah, there's so many different variables, and there's so many layers to coaching, and coaching in general, but then coaching group classes. There's so much that goes into it. Like Sam touched on this earlier. He's like, am I running on time? Logistically, is this running well? There's so many things that we are considering in that hour that people don't see. There's so much that is going on, that if you just go and do a 2-day course where they teach you how to do a thruster and the 3 points of performance about that, you're not equipped at all.
The course actually, all the course does is it teaches you how to do CrossFit. It teaches you the fundamentals of how do we do CrossFit. It doesn't actually touch upon how you're motivating people.
No, but then that's the next step, right? Because if you do the level 2, that is then the coaching course.
Yeah.
Right? And then they delve, there's a lot of good information there. And I still think only then should that be the barrier to entry in terms of starting to learn.
But you should also, in no matter what field you're in, you should also do some time as an assistant. You should do some time as shadowing someone. You should not even go from your level 1 to your level 2 and then go out and coach if you've never been on the gym floor shadowing someone.
No.
You need that experience. Experience is invaluable at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's going to walk through the door. Like you said, the variables are massive. And you can get a games athlete, you can get someone that's never been to a gym before in their life, and you have to adapt from one extreme to the other. And you can't. And again, that's something that you can't really be taught. You kind of have to learn through experience, and it's something that comes over
by
time.
making mistakes. But it's only okay to make mistakes if there's somebody else with you to help you out and make.
Because it's also very easy within this job to fall into a comfort zone, and I've been there and I've done that. Like
go into
just
autopilot. Yeah,
complete autopilot, using the same movements for warm up, like using the same cues, and this is what I love about working with multiple people on the floor, is you pick up so much, you learn constantly. And I love that. But so I said my biggest criticism of CrossFit earlier, but this is another big one, is the barrier to entry in terms of becoming a trainer. Because anyone in this dog who's like, I think this thing is really cool, can open a gym. If you have the right amount of money and two days off, that's it.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, that's why we're super lucky here in Bali that we've had so many coaches come through the gym, and you're able to work with different people and hear their different style. Like, I love walking past you and being like, okay, what's he saying to him to fix that problem, rather than just thinking, okay, this is what I'd say, to hear someone else's point of view on it. And just, to never like stop learning, always look for that next thing.
And that makes the best coaches, right? So Stella came up to me today. She's also one of the coaches. She came up to me today. She's seen I've been cueing someone, and she was curious just because she had seen something. And he's quite a good athlete, right? So it wasn't like sometimes it's very obvious and sometimes it's not. She walked up to me and she's like, what did you say to him? Just to see whether what she had seen had matched up, and then to know about how I approached that. So it's that continuous wanting to learn and be better, and taking what you do seriously, instead of, I have to take these people through that in this hour and then be gone. There's so much to this.
I do think that's the difference between seeing yourself as a coach as your career, though. People can just see it as a job where you just come for the 60 minutes, get paid and go home. And you're never going to be successful like that. It needs to be a career. It needs to be what you're passionate about.
And I think that's a bit of a hard thing with CrossFit, right? Because it's very difficult to have, there's not much of a ladder. You have to be quite creative to make CrossFit a career, because, I can't keep doing this forever. It's not, you're not making massive money doing this. It's just fine, right? And at what point? But where do you move? And do you want to own a box? I'm very clear that I don't want to be a box owner. It's not something I once dabbled, hated it. So yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question as well. Is what is next for the CrossFit coach? Because something I've thought about as well is like I don't want to be like in my 40s and my 50s coaching CrossFit.
No.
I want to be at the next stage, but the same, like I don't want to open up a gym because I love the freedom that I have with coach CrossFit, like you said, the ability to travel. As soon as you open a gym, you've lost that. And then the other thing is like, oh, it's all right, you just transfer online. But then I like coaching in person, and you can't do it. Suddenly you go from being a CrossFit coach where you spend 6 hours helping people in the gym to sat down at home spending 6 hours on your laptop. And it's like, it's not really what you're passionate about.
And it's also like, and this is something that's really big for me at the moment, is everyone and his dog is a CrossFit coach and can become a CrossFit dog coach, but everyone and his dog and his cat is now giving people advice online about.
It's so hard, man.
It's crazy. I saw something the other day and it gets me. I'd given a cue to someone, and then I saw them post about how they'd given that same cue or that same bit of feedback to someone online.
You just have to take that as it happens to me all the time with my nutrition programming and stuff like that. You'll speak to someone about it and then they'll post it being like this kind of thing. You just have to take it as a massive compliment. Just be like,
yes,
you know
but
what?
They're earning the money off it that I'm, like.
We had this conversation when I have quite a few other coaches on my programming. So for my nutrition programming, and then we have this conversation is, should you allow other coaches on your nutrition programming because are they actually learning that and using that programming, or are they just then regurgitating it and selling it themselves?
Yeah, and I mean, in our environment, there's no way of managing that. Yeah. But then it's about being like, well, actually, I have all of the experience, all of the knowledge. Yeah. So how do I package it? And I think that's the most difficult thing for me. And that's why some of your episodes, the episode of Sunny, the episode of Darren, super, super interesting in that sense. Because it's how do I approach it and how do I package it? Because I know how to be effective on the floor face to face. I have no idea how to be effective online.
But you'll learn.
Yeah,
because you've done, the one thing that I said to him when we were speaking about like, should I let other coaches do our programming or whatever? It's like they can do that and they can try and regurgitate if they want, but they can't regurgitate 11 years at university. They can't regurgitate all the qualification, all the experience of coaching, all that kind of stuff. They can't do that. They can just package it and maybe sell it, but it's not going to work for them because they don't have that experience or that knowledge base.
Yeah, someone can take one cue from you, but they're not going to know the next 10 cues down the line or the next 10 progressions down the line.
Or if that cue doesn't quite work for the person, they're not going to know another alternative to it, which you will do.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, this is a massive theme. I know, cause I know so many CrossFit coaches, and this is something everyone deals with. Either they find something they get out the game completely, which is quite sad, or they find a way of being creative and still packaging what they know and what they're good at. And I'm not sure yet where mine is.
Well, on that note, that we don't quite know where the future's going, we're going to end this episode. So
stay tuned.
See you in episode 2.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we go to the viewers at home?
Don't be a dick. Stay within your limits.
Yes, love that. Where can the viewers find you?
Instagram at Dan Colpo 17. Colpo COLPO. And that's all. Please don't text me.
If you want Dan's number, it can be sold to you for about $10. Go on, Samuel. Where can the viewers at home reach you?
Also, Instagram at SamBish92. If you want to check out my YouTube, I've got a vlog coming out this week, which is very exciting. At The Life of Bish.
Awesome. At Mike Nico on Instagram. Mike
it was
Nichols on
Nicho.
YouTube. Nico.
You haven't corrected me one time. I've been like, hey, Nicho.
No, because that's back home. That's a joke. So
okay.
For another story. We played football in a semi-final, and the coach was a new coach, and he called me Nicho rather than Nico. And then all the football lads were just like, no, that's what we're going to call you from now on.
Oh no, I just feel like I'm tagging along with something I don't know.
Make your own jokes, mate.
Yeah.
Right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much for listening.
It's life outside the box.